Hey everyone, so this is the last video of this semester, of this module of this course, and we're going to talk just briefly about graduate study in psychology. Now, one important note I should say is that you do not have to go to grad school in psychology with your psychology major. We've had students go on to medical school. In fact, we've had students do the EVMS early admissions program. We've had students go to law school. We've had students go for masters in a whole host of different fields. So certainly as a psychology major, you do not have to go on to grad school in psychology. Just clarify that first. The next thing I should talk about is the different type of degrees. So let's just start with the master's versus PhD. So master's is usually going to be 2 to 3 years, often really practical. And might prepare you explicitly to go on for a PhD, but some are terminal masters. You just stop at the end of those 2 to 3 years, and then you can get licensed if you want to practice. Then the PhD, typically 4 to 7 years. Mine were 6. That's pretty average, I think, for clinical psychology PhDs. And there are also what's called the PsyD. We'll get to that in a minute. So in terms of master's level degrees, so you can choose to do a master's level degree just in research. And then if you have just a master's level degree in a psychological research field, then you can work in a lab. There are all hosts of you can do. You can work for industry and make lots of bucks, right? So you can stop there. There are also master's degrees that are more applied. So you could get a master's degree in clinical, for example, or in counseling psychology. You can also go on with a psychology degree and get a master's in social work, which, especially since VWU has a bachelor's in social work, people get kind of confused about, like, oh, do I need that to do the master's in social work? No, they just get a shortcut when they get to their master's, but you can still do it, and we've had students get their MSW. Once you have that terminal master's in one of those helping fields, you can get licensed. It's usually an LPC, so licensed professional counselor. Think of it for a second. But if you are a social worker, there are a couple different licenses you can get as a social worker as well. Sometimes you might need to be under the supervision of someone with a doctorate, depending on your state, but you can still give people therapy. And since that's what a lot of people want to do, and they don't want to do research and they don't want to teach, there's no need for you to get a doctorate at that point in time. So save yourself the time and money. Now, when you get to the doctoral level, like I said, I told you there's the PhD and the PsyD. So I'll start with the PsyD. The PsyD is specific to psychology, and it's a professional degree. It's basically if you took the master's in clinical psychology, I think you can get a PsyD in counseling as well, and you just extended it out to 5 or 6 years. You have a doctoral degree, you can be called doctor, and work in settings that require you to have a doctorate. So for example, often hospital settings or the VA might require you to do that. You will get all clinically based training. Basically, you don't really get any training in research. And often instead of a database dissertation, you might do a field project as your final project. Although certainly some PsyDs like Stanford require you to do a database dissertation. Then there's the PhD, and the PhD in psychology is as wide-ranging as all the topics we've talked about this semester. So yes, you can get a PhD in clinical psychology, like myself, or in counseling. You can even get a PhD in social work. You can get a PhD in experimental psychology. There's a whole host of different subfields. So for example, let's say you're interested in working with kids, but you really like research and you're not sure you want to actually do therapy with them. You could go and be a developmental psychologist, get your PhD, do research with kiddos. And then if you want to, you can also teach, for example. That is a big thing that the PhD lets you do, is get a full-time faculty position or a position in research, either in academia, medical, or industry settings that lets you run your own lab, if that's your thought. that you be the primary investigator, where you direct the research. So that is a big thing the PhD lets you do. And like I said, it also allows you to become a faculty member. So you can teach with a master's, but typically you can only get what's called adjunct work, where you would only teach maybe 1 or 2 classes a semester. And to be perfectly honest, if you read up about adjunct work in academia, it really is unfortunately abusive. A lot of people do it as a add-on to their 9-to-5 job. So they'll teach at night or they'll teach online, and then it's fine. But if you're trying to make your livelihood off adjuncting, it's horrible. So would not recommend. If you're really thinking, I want to teach, I want to be a professor of psychology, that's where my passion lies, you're gonna need that PhD. You're gonna need the research experience, because if you're in academia, you're expected to prove that you're doing well in 3 areas. So one of them is teaching, not surprisingly. The second one is research, or what we call professional development. Now, the third one is service to the institution. So advising, serving on committees, what have you. So if you're thinking, I want to be a professor, you gotta like research. If you're thinking, I want to get a PhD, you gotta like research. I think a lot of people kind of don't take that into account. But PhDs are research-based. Even if you're getting one in clinical or counseling, yes, you're getting that training in the applied area, but you're also going to be doing research. You might be doing, for sure you'll do a database dissertation where you collect all your own data, but you might do other projects as well. I did a master's thesis on my way. I also worked for my grad advisor, collecting data for her before I started teaching and doing other jobs in the department. So that's a whole wide range of things you can ponder. What I typically advise people to do if they're unsure if they might want to go that PhD route is to do a master's first. Oftentimes your PhD will take some of your transfer credits, so it's not time wasted. And if you decide, this is it, I'm good, I just want to practice, or I just want to work doing research under someone else, you can stop after those 2 to 3 years, have substantially less debt, and be working and like getting retirement at that point in time, saving up for a house or things along those lines. So definitely ponder all your options. Again, talk to your instructor of record, talk to whoever is in the career development office. When I made this video, it is Jessica Harrington. And we can help guide you to the type of program and even the exact program that might be great for you. All right, I hope you've enjoyed this course. I always enjoy teaching it. And I hope that it's been really helpful for you as you think about what the world's going to be like for you after graduation.